All right, welcome back to Talk Tickers, everybody. You know what we do here? We take these complex earnings calls and we boil them down to just the insights that you need.
That's right. We cut to the chase and try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into BioNTech's Q3 2024 performance.
Feels good.
Now, what's really interesting here, and maybe a little head-scratching, to be honest, is that their stock actually dipped 2.25%.
That is interesting.
It is, right, because they exceeded earnings expectations. And they've announced some exciting advancements in their oncology pipeline, so
what's going on there?
we're going to find out. But before we get into all of that, let me just give you a quick reminder that at the end of this deep dive, we have our infamous "This is not financial advice" segment.
Of course. Always a fun one.
It is, where we're going to come up with a wild trade idea based on everything we uncover about BioNTech today.
Can't wait.
So let's start, I guess, with their COVID-19 vaccine business, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, it's still a big part of their revenue. So they just launched these updated vaccines that target the newest variants.
Oh, wow. Already.
I know. And they're distributing globally at this point.
It's amazing how quickly they adapted their mRNA technology. I mean, they had to meet all these different regionally specific strain recommendations, right?
It's mind-blowing. I mean, they've got Europe, the UK, the US, Canada.
Even Japan.
Yeah, Japan. It's incredible. And speaking of the future of this, I did want to mention the U.S. is actually recommending extra COVID doses
Really? For who?
for older and immunocompromised individuals.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, that could lead to some continued demand for BioNTech's vaccines, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
They seem to be really, really good at anticipating market shifts,
Yeah.
knowing how to, maneuver and adapt.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on, though, to what's generating all this excitement. BioNTech's oncology pipeline.
Okay.
They have, I think, what they call a multi-pronged approach, focusing on these personalized mRNA cancer vaccines.
I've heard about those. They sound incredible.
Yeah. Also something called bispecific antibodies, which we'll have to dive into, and then other what they call targeted immunotherapies.
Wow, a lot going on. What I find impressive, though, is that they are exploring like a whole range of approaches to cancer treatment. They're not just focused on one thing.
Totally.
So, like a great example of this, and we touched on it a bit earlier, but BNT111, their FixVac mRNA cancer vaccine candidate,
Right.
it recently met its primary endpoint.
It did. That's huge.
Yeah, in a phase 2 trial for melanoma. And that's a big deal, I think, because it really validates the potential of their mRNA vaccine technology.
Yeah, you're right. Beyond just infectious diseases. For our listeners who aren't familiar with FixVac, think of it this way. It's like a ready-to-use vaccine designed to target very specific antigens found on cancer cells.
Yeah, like it's teaching your immune system how to recognize and destroy these rogue cells.
Exactly. And so this success with BNT111 really hints at this possibility of like a revolution in cancer treatment, and not just for melanoma, across various types.
Right, exactly.
So we also mentioned BNT327 earlier.
Yes, that bispecific antibody.
Yes. Targeting those two really, really important proteins,
Wow.
PD-L1 and VEGF. So I know this is going to sound like alphabet soup to some people, so let me just break it down.
Please.
So PD-L1 is kind of like this shield that cancer cells use to hide from our immune system.
Sneaky.
Right. And then VEGF helps tumors grow blood vessels, which they need, obviously, to survive and spread.
Oh, I see. So BNT327 is targeting both of those.
At the same time, it's like this double agent. It weakens the cancer's defenses and cuts off its supply lines.
Very cool. And it's working.
Well, they did a phase 3 trial for triple-negative breast cancer.
Oh, right. TNBC, that's the aggressive one.
Yeah. And BNT327 showed a 74% confirmed objective response rate.
Wow. 74%? That's incredible. Especially for TNBC. I mean, that is known for being so difficult to treat.
Really difficult to treat. Yeah. So this could be a game changer for so many patients.
It really could be.
And what's even more exciting, it seems like it's effective across different PD-L1 statuses.
What does that mean?
So a lot of existing therapies only work in patients with high PD-L1 expression, right? So this leaves a lot of TNBC patients with very, very few treatment options.
Oh, that makes sense. So this is a big breakthrough.
It is. And BioNTech is not stopping there.
What are they doing next?
They've got this ambitious 3-wave development plan for BNT327.
Wow. Okay, tell me about it.
Okay, so first they are going to combine it with standard chemotherapy regimens.
Okay.
Then they're going to explore its potential with these things called antibody drug conjugates.
Antibody drug what?
Conjugates, ADCs. Think of them as guided missiles that deliver these potent drugs directly to cancer cells.
Oh, wow.
And then finally, they plan to just expand BNT327 into even more cancer types, different treatment settings, just really going all in on it.
It's like they're really committed to this.
They are. And then, of course, on top of all of this, they have BNT122. This is their individualized cancer vaccine candidate. And it's designed to actually reduce the risk of cancer recurring after somebody's had surgery. And they're running phase 2 trials right now for pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, and bladder cancer.
Wow, that is ambitious.
I know. So they're clearly a powerhouse when it comes to science. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible in cancer treatment.
Totally. It's really inspiring to see.
It is. But of course, we have to talk about the financial side of things.
Of course.
Because even the most groundbreaking science has to be financially sustainable. Or what's the point?
Exactly. So how did BioNTech actually do in Q3?
Well, their financials were strong, I have to say. They reported a total revenue of $1.245 billion.
Wow.
Which was driven largely by early approvals of their variant-adapted COVID-19 vaccines. However, they did lower their full-year revenue guidance to the low end of the range.
That's probably why we saw that dip in their stock price then.
Right. Even with the strong quarterly performance, why do you think they lowered the guidance? Was it demand?
Well, it seems like a mix of lower demand and then also like pricing pressure in low and middle income countries.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here's the most interesting part. BioNTech is projecting a loss for the year.
A loss? I mean, but they had strong revenue numbers. I'm confused.
It's a strategic decision.
Okay.
They're investing heavily in their oncology assets.
Oh, I see.
So long term, that should lead to substantial growth and returns.
So they're playing the long game.
Exactly. Prioritizing future innovation over short-term profits, which I think is really smart.
I do too. It's forward thinking. And it's particularly exciting because, they've got this wave of clinical data updates coming in the next 18 months.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, they're about to enter this catalyst-rich period, which could really, make a big difference in how their stock performs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of getting more information, they are actually hosting an innovation series event on November 14th.
Oh, nice.
So if you want to dive even deeper into BioNTech's oncology strategy, mark your calendars.
I'll definitely check it out.
So to do a quick recap before we get into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment.
Okay.
BioNTech is still leading the charge with their COVID-19 vaccines, right?
Yes.
They're making these amazing strides in oncology.
It's amazing.
And they're being smart about how they're investing to secure future growth. I think it's safe to say it's a very, very exciting time to be watching this company.
Oh, absolutely. They're at the forefront of innovation. I mean, their advancements could really reshape the entire landscape of infectious disease and cancer treatment.
And it's incredible to see what they've done in such a short amount of time. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get wild.
It's time to brainstorm some trade ideas.
Yeah.
But before we do, folks, huge disclaimer here. This is purely for entertainment purposes. Should absolutely not be taken as financial advice. Do your own research. Talk to a professional before making any investment decisions.
Okay. Agreed. It's just for fun.
All right, good. Let's have some fun then. So we talked a lot about BioNTech's commitment to oncology, their clinical trial plans, everything that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So what if, hear me out.
Okay.
What if we consider a long-term call option play?
All right.
Betting on the success of BNT327 in TNBC.
Okay, I like where you're going.
If it continues to do as well as it's doing now in these upcoming trials, that upside potential, it's massive.
Yeah. That's a bold move, but I mean, honestly, it's not outlandish based on the data that we've seen.
Right. I mean, if BNT327 keeps exceeding expectations...
that call option could be pure gold.
Right. But again, this is purely speculative, not a recommendation. Always talk to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. We're just having some fun here, exploring the possibilities. So with that said, why don't we take a look at some of the finer details of BioNTech's Q3 performance and their long-term strategy in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds great. I'm ready when you are. Welcome back to the show. So picking up where we left off, one of the things that really stood out to me in this BioNTech earnings call was that, they're projecting a loss for the year.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive given their revenue.
Yeah. And, in a market that's so obsessed with short-term games, it's kind of a bold move.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
So can you help me understand why would they be comfortable with this risk?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, BioNTech has decided to double down to really invest heavily in their oncology pipeline. Think about it. Tons of resources into research, clinical trials. They're expanding their team.
Okay.
And yeah, while that might mean, a little dip in their financials right now, they're playing the long game here, right? They're betting that this is going to pay off big time down the road with these groundbreaking therapies and then ultimately, much stronger financial performance overall.
It's so fascinating. It really shows how much confidence they have in their oncology program. And speaking of that, we talked about FixVac, their platform. We talked about BNT328.7. What other candidates do they have in the works?
Well, I think it's worth taking a closer look at their work with individualized cancer vaccines,
Okay.
specifically BNT122 or iNeST. And the idea here is really mind-blowing. It's like, imagine a vaccine that's made just for you, for your unique tumor profile,
Wow.
training your immune system to attack the specific mutations in your cancer cells.
That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, right. But it's actually happening, and it could revolutionize how we treat cancer, moving away from these one-size-fits-all treatments to these really personalized approaches that are hopefully more effective and less toxic.
That would be incredible.
And, they're currently doing phase 2 trials for iNeST in pancreatic, colorectal, and bladder cancer. Those are all really, really tough cancers to treat. And, these trials, they're going to be so important to proving that this personalized vaccine approach is safe and effective. And the early data is looking really, really promising. So, if this works, if iNeST lives up to its potential, it could be a game changer for cancer patients everywhere.
It's really inspiring to see a company that's so dedicated to making a real difference. And not just focused on profits, but, responsible growth as well.
Totally. And it goes way beyond the financials for them. They're really focused on making sure that everyone has access to their innovations, especially in low and middle income countries. They care about ethical research practices, their environmental impact, the whole picture.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's circle back to their Q3 financials for a sec.
Okay.
They had some impressive revenue numbers, but they also lowered their full-year revenue guidance.
Right. And I think it's important to keep in mind that, the pandemic is still kind of unpredictable.
Great.
And demand for COVID vaccines, well, it goes up, it goes down. Plus, BioNTech is a global company, so currency exchange rates, market dynamics all over the world, those things all have an impact.
So really, it's a reminder that we need to be thinking long-term when we look at companies like BioNTech.
Absolutely. You can't get caught up in just the quarterly numbers. Got to look at the big picture.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I did want to circle back to BNT327.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Because we talked about it in TNBC, triple-negative breast cancer, and how well it's doing there. But it sounds like they have even bigger plans for this antibody.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're testing it in a whole range of solid tumors, like lung cancer, for example, which, as you know, is a leading cause of cancer deaths globally.
Right.
And there are two main types, right? There's non-small cell lung cancer, which is the most common.
Right, NSCLC.
Exactly. And then there's small cell lung cancer, or SCLC, which is less common but much more aggressive.
Got it.
So not only are they trying BNT327 in these different types of cancers, but they're looking at it in various stages of the disease and in combination with other treatments.
Sounds like they're leaving no stone unturned.
Exactly. Yeah. They're trying it in patients who have already had other treatments. Maybe they've run out of options.
Okay.
They're combining it with chemo, with radiotherapy, with other immunotherapies, just to see, can they make it even more effective?
So strategic.
And that's kind of what sets BioNTech apart. It's not just random. They're being really thoughtful and meticulous with every step.
It's clear they have a lot of faith in BNT327. And from the early data, it seems like they're right to be confident. It could really become a major player in their oncology work.
Definitely. And this is just one piece of the puzzle. They have so many other oncology projects in the pipeline, and each one has the potential to make a real impact.
It's just really inspiring to see a company pushing the boundaries of science like this, creating these therapies that could change everything about human health.
For sure. So why don't we take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap everything up. We'll talk about their long-term strategy, and of course, we've got to get to our This Is Not Financial Advice segment.
The moment you've all been waiting for. All right, see you in it. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into BioNTech's Q3 earnings call.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. Lots to unpack here, but before we wrap up completely, I want to zoom out for a minute. Big picture. What does the future hold for BioNTech? I mean, they're killing it with the COVID vaccine, obviously.
Right.
And now we've got all these advancements in oncology. It's like, where are they going to focus?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Because right now they're kind of in these two different worlds, right? You've got infectious diseases and then you've got oncology.
Totally.
But, their success with that COVID vaccine has given them the resources, the know-how, everything they need to go after these big goals in cancer treatment.
Yeah, it's like they're using what they learned in one area to fuel this innovation in another.
Exactly. They're a scientific powerhouse, but moving forward, are they going to stay this hybrid company, doing both?
Right.
Or will they pick a lane, focus on one thing?
That's a tough call.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's their long-term strategy?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but if I look at what they've been doing, the investments they've made, it really seems like they're leaning into oncology.
It does feel like that's where they're putting their energy.
Their pipeline is packed with these potential cancer treatments, and they keep expanding their research and development specifically in that area.
Yeah. And the market for cancer treatment, I mean, it's huge. They could really dominate that space.
Oh, for sure.
And their mRNA technology, it's so adaptable, right?
It's so versatile, yeah.
It's not just for vaccines. They can use it to develop all these different therapies for so many types of cancers.
I mean, their mRNA platform is like this toolkit.
Okay.
They can design such precise treatments, target specific pathways.
It really feels like their work could revolutionize, I don't know, all of medicine.
It could. It really could.
Yeah. Okay. But before we get too deep into the future, we got to have a little fun, right?
It's time.
All right, this is not financial advice segment. Remember, everyone, purely for entertainment, don't make any investment decisions based on what you hear here, okay?
Just a thought experiment.
Exactly. So all this talk about biotech and oncology, what if, and this is where it gets really interesting, what if they spin off their oncology division?
Ooh, spin it off, make it its own company.
Separate, publicly traded company. BioNTech Oncology.
That would make a splash, for sure.
Right. All these investors who are specifically interested in oncology, they would flock to that stock.
That's true. It would let that part of their business stand on its own.
And think about the market cap. It would reflect the potential of those cancer therapies.
Yeah, you're getting me thinking now. But would BioNTech actually do it? I mean, that's a big part of their business.
Right. And would it actually benefit both companies in the long run?
That's the question.
Lots to consider. Only time will tell what they decide to do. But one thing's for sure, BioNTech is not afraid to shake things up. They are pioneers. They're driven by this need to discover, to create, to actually improve human health. It's pretty awesome.
It is. They're definitely a company to keep your eye on. Their story's not over yet.
All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into BioNTech's Q3 2024 earnings call.
We covered a lot. Financials, breakthroughs, trade ideas, the whole 9 yards.
We did. So, as always, thanks for tuning in to Talk Tickers. Remember to stay curious, stay informed, do your own research, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
See ya.